Hello, happy Thursday everybody. Today I want to discuss this knife right here, this multi-tool rather, the Leatherman Original PST. So let's get into it. This is Leatherman's first multi-tool that was originally designed by Tim Leatherman back in the day after traveling Europe and realizing he wanted some sort of pocket knife with pliers. And this, like all Leathermans, do deliver just that. It has all the tools, useful multi-tool, and some pliers, which at the time, in the 80s, was revolutionary because obviously Swiss Army knives did not have pliers, or if they did, they were rather de-emphasized. And, the Swiss Army knife pattern, the one body pattern, is simply not that conducive to having nice pliers. So this knife features quite a few implements, starting here with the main blade, which is a fine edge, not serrated, although the PST2 does have a serrated edge, high hollow grind, making it a pretty decent slicer. Put the main blade away. It's got a aw or punch, so you can drill with this or poke holes in things. Tools are a little bit sticky, which is, I guess, one criticism that some people levy against it. It's got a medium flathead screwdriver and a large flathead screwdriver. Both these work excellently. Then on the other handle, you got a can opener, bottle opener combo tool, and it works great for both. I've done both with this very tool. You've got a beautiful 3D Phillips head, which is not one of those like flattened ones that Gerber does. This one works great, and it's also rather fine, so you can even get in some surprisingly small Phillips headed screws with this one here. And it's also got a fine flathead, which actually Leatherman phased out later because of and replaced it with the multi-change bit adapter thingy, the smaller one that they have on their Waves and Charge series now. The reason they replaced it is because this one, had a tendency to break or bend. So if you actually go on eBay, like right now, and look up like old Leatherman PSTs or other vintage Leatherman tools, you'll see that this part is bended and twisted. And the final implement is a double-sided file. So this side's got cross hatching, and then this side's got a finer single hatching. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but I think it's supposed to be this side's for metal or other harder materials, and this one's for wood or other softer materials. Yeah, you can file your fingernails on either side. It actually works surprisingly well too. And then I guess, the star of the show is the pliers themselves, needle nose, and I guess like not needle nose pliers. Wire cutters, yeah, they don't have a hard wire cutter, and nor do they have the replaceable bits like other Leatherman tools. And the final thing, which, I find to be kind of useless, but there is a ruler along the back. Each handle is 4 inches long itself, so it's together 8 inches long when you arrange it like this. And in theory, you can measure stuff, but oftentimes it's not really a replacement for a real ruler for any real measuring tasks. Although it does let you get a bit of an eyeball on something if you're trying to figure out just an approximate length or width or something. There's also a little lanyard loop right here. You can put a little split ring in there and then put a lanyard on it if you wanted it. I personally don't want that because the way I carry this is usually just in my pocket, not in the sheath, because it is so small. And this gets us to the first thing that I really enjoy about this tool is its size and the fact that it is so small yet has so much functionality packed into it. Yes, it is no Swiss Army knife, right? But when you compare it to a modern day Leatherman tool, this is the Leatherman Rebar, which is actually smaller than their Leatherman Wave, which is their flagship model. The Wave is actually thicker and heavier than the Rebar because it features the opening, one-hand opening tools on the outside. And their free P2 and P4 are also bigger than this one here. But the Leatherman Rebar, it features all the same tools really, except the addition of a saw and a serrated blade, and also the replaceable wire cutters that I was talking about earlier. And also all the implements are locking. The PST features non-locking implements, which some people don't like, but I think is personally fine. For example, if you use a knife blade, this is what people always say about slip joints and old-timey knives, that if you use it properly, the forces will only ever be directed this way, like you're cutting through something, so it should never be an issue. And then with things like the screwdrivers, if you close the tool like this, yes, it can still collapse, but it's not going to like hurt your hand or anything. Plus, it takes quite a bit of force to disengage that back spring, which is still strong after, I think this specific one's from 93. So that shows that it's clearly going to stand the test of time. So I don't really mind the non-locking implements. When you compare it to the rebar, it's significantly thinner than the rebar, which makes it a lot easier to carry. And this is to say the rebar is one of Leatherman's smaller full-size tools that exist in their lineup today. So this even beats out that. And it's just such a space-efficient multi-tool. The other thing you'll notice that the rebar has is these raised edges on the handles. That is so that when you open it up for the pliers, they can actually fold that edge over. You can see it most clearly right there, which makes it more comfortable to use, more comfortable to grip with your hand, especially when you bear down on it, instead of the non-folded over handles, which is just what this is. It's just a straight edge, which makes it a little bit harder on your hands, especially when you're bearing down on things. It sort of eats into your hand a little bit more. But I think that for lighter use applications, it's perfectly fine. And for heavier use applications, you can just wrap a rag or something else around it and won't have any issues. But yeah, so I think that because it is so small, right, you can see that it's very, very compact and very efficient use of space. It is a lot easier to carry and still, get all the benefits of this larger tool, minus the serrated blade, which, I've had for a while and almost never use. And the saw I've used a couple times, but never in a situation where I would need it on the go. For example, I could just have like another saw on me when I'm camping or something like that. So it's not like I would want to use the small Leatherman saw anyways. And to compare it to some other things that I carry around, right, like this is the Benchmade 940, and you can see that the footprint of the PST is almost exactly the same size as it in terms of like, like how much space it will take up in my pocket. And the thickness is even comparable. Well, obviously the PST is thicker, but for the sheer amount of functionality that you're getting out of this tool, I think that it's worth it for that little bit of thickness. And obviously it's heavier too, in that this is essentially a chunk of steel, whereas this one's got aluminum and steel and all this other stuff. So I think it is worth it for the amount of weight that it is and the size that it is. It just makes it so easy to carry and use. And that's really important because obviously it doesn't matter how great the multi-tool is if you never actually end up carrying it on you. It doesn't matter how many things it can do because you never actually have it when you need it. And that's what's really important about it being small and portable and light and easy to carry with a small footprint. So overall conclusions on the Leatherman PST, which also, I forgot to mention, stands for Pocket Survival Tool, the original tool that Tim Leatherman came up with. I think it's a very high value tool, especially that even though it's discontinued and was in 04, you can still find them today on eBay and other places for probably, if you're willing to spend to $40, $50, you can find a very nice conditioned one. And I think that it's incredibly high value for that price. Yes, the blade might be worn down like mine, but I think that even then, it's still a very highly effective tool with a very specific, set of tools that is very, very useful even in your day-to-day usage today. I think that because it is so small and easy to carry, it fits an interesting niche that Leatherman no longer fills because things like the Skele-Tool simply don't have the same functionality as this one. That being said, I think that even though it has been discontinued and it has been out since the 80s, I think it has stood the test of time and is a worthy investment for your money today. In fact, I still carry this most days, or definitely more than I carry this Leatherman, even though this one has more functionality. So at the end of the day, I would highly recommend the Leatherman PST, which stands for, the Leatherman PST. A great all-around multi-tool. Have a nice day.